Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Normally I'd have Fernando here, but he is still out with a sick kid. So I scoured the internet and I made one phone call. Actually, I made two. Someone didn't answer. So then my backup, as always, our good friend, Brian Mitchell. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Dean.
How are you?
I'm good.
I didn't make one phone call before you.
That's okay. Yeah. I always, the bridesmaid, never the bride.
I know. Well, I didn't want to bother you is really what it came down to. Because it's
Oh,
like,
thank you.
I was trying to think East Coast time because, you're West Coast time and this is the middle of your day. So I'm interrupting your hectic schedule.
Yeah, my hectic schedule today. Yeah.
But anyways, so thank you for coming on. Hi,
No
Brian.
problem. Always.
Always.
Uh,
Hi. It's a Monday show, so we got a couple. This is going to be weird. So I'm going to try not to shake this too much.
yeah.
This Toyota Tundra is kind of taking up the room, and then I had this brilliant idea that I'd set things up a little differently, which is probably a bad idea because anytime you change things from the sure, true way, it always goes wrong. So I will try to be zen-like and not shake the table too much. See, there we go.
Yeah. It's like an earthquake.
Yeah. You know all
You're
about
getting those
that.
on the East Coast now.
Yeah.
You're getting those on the East Coast now.
Yeah. Yes, but not here in Florida.
Yeah. Yet.
Oh, Jesus, don't even go there. I mean, I think one earthquake, we're all just going into the ocean. So
Yeah. Well, just make like a splashing bathtub thing.
yeah, it'd be cool. When you're doing the water goes everywhere. So Cherry answers the phone for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, what's going on? Evening,
Hi,
gents.
Cody.
Big
Cody.
thumbs up, Wizard. I think that's a good name for you. But today is Monday, so we got a couple things we got to get through before we get to the questions. But by all means, we are going to be answering questions tonight. So you have the expert Brian Mitchell here. So feel free to ask anything you like, boxer briefs, whatever it takes, and we will get through this and have a great time. But before we do that, I'm going to pull this guy up here, which is going to appear small on my screen. This is the 12-volt clean wire of the day. So
That's a clean wire, too.
scours the interwebs and finds something cool. Brought to us by the fine folks at T-Spec. You can find a catalog for all their products at metroonline.com, along with Tsunami products as well. Obviously, we're looking at some Hertz audio control. Was that a 5-channel or it's a 6-channel? It's either a 5 or a 6-channel. Oh, it's a 5-channel. I can tell by the subwoofer. But anyways, did a really nice job. I don't know who to give credit to because my little buddy is not here to tell me the name. But if you're interested and would like to be part of the 12-volt Clean Wire Club picture of the week, make sure to post. And that's that. How you doing?
That was some nice wiring.
It was some nice wiring. I'm staring
The
at
multi-level step thing is hard to pull off, and he did that good, or he or she, not sure who did. So
yeah, I mean, there's some really good examples. I think there's this guy that does like a lot of good examples of how to pull this off.
a lot of
Ooh, I got
I already did a
I got-
Metro rack that looks awesome, or not Metro, Memphis.
Yeah, that turned out really nice. But I even came up with a better idea. For a teaching piece. Oh my gosh! And by we, I mean Fernando and I.
Not me. Yeah.
No, I just got to think of some. The problem that we run into, like building those, is like I know I can call you up and say, hey, could you send me some destroyed amplifiers that look really clean, and they'll show up then like a day later, and they'll be awesome. Kind of like what we did for Master Tech Expo. I had 2 extras.
Right.
But the problem is that like when we go do manufacturers training, like not next week, the week after, we'll be at Orca. I can't show up with that.
No.
Even if I put a big
You
Fire
could.
logo over it.
But you want to show up twice with it.
No, yeah, sure. That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's like, man, so
I'll get a good
yes,
bit of fun out of it, but
yeah, it kind of sucks. Fernando's out with the sick kid, so that's where we're at. What's up from Kentucky, Dan? What's up, Dan?
Dan,
Uh, Christian, hi. Um, on the 911 Tundra, could you please explain how the Blackbird is powering the speakers and if there will be a sub amp for the Bobby box? I tell you what, I will answer that after this. We're done here. I'm going to wrap up the day. I don't know. So just to give you, Brian, what's going on is because Fernando's not here and I really wanted to film this 911 that we have. I've been
right.
going like I do on Instagram. I've been doing it on YouTube. So I've been popping in as we get to pivotal parts in the installation and kind of talking about what's happening. And
Yeah.
so the first part, of course, was getting this back to a reasonable state of normalcy, and now it's
Right,
building it back up.
so you can start working on it.
Yeah. So tonight, after this, stay tuned. I will go and wrap up what we did on what has happened, has transpired throughout the day on this, and what we have to look forward to tomorrow. So stay tuned, and I will answer that question then. Before we get too deep into this, though, we have to do that thing. We have to pay some bills. I know. What fun is that? Today, our first sponsor is brought to you by the fine folks at Arc Audio. We've been doing this. Yeah, we've been doing this cool segment right here, which is not this one, but they're quick tips. Hold on. Let me make that appropriate. This is what happens when this thing sets itself up. Okay. We've been doing this segment called Quick Tips. We have done it with Moscone, but lately we've been doing it with Arc Audio. And what we've decided to do is go back and talk a little bit about the equipment that the DSP is actually built into. One of them, of course, being the Blackbird, which is going into this truck. But they also make a couple other ones. One of my personal favorites is it's so cute and little. Brian, do you have one right there you can hold up and show how adorable it is? Look at that. That is the PSM Pro. I don't know why there was a C in there. PSM Pro. I'm not doing well today. I think I should just hang up and start over. This is what happens. But this is the PSM Pro. One of the unique things about this product that sets it above everyone else's little tiny micro DSP is that it is AR compatible. Not only is it AR compatible, its competitor that is out right now, DSR1 from Rocket Bosque, it uses the exact same harnesses. So if you do have one of those and you would like to upgrade to a more robust DSP, the one that we've been showing you for the last month or two, you can easily do that by adding in an AR and then just plugging in all your harnesses. So it uses the exact same harnesses. One of the things that does make it different, and a lot of people were complaining about this on the other, is that this has 6 channels of preamp input, not 4. That's right. It's a 6 in, 8 out. That is, as you can see, Brian is rather big, so it looks really small in his hands. He's not. He's short. He's got little tiny fingers. But it is very small. Ooh, there's his mouse. And then as you can see in the little ad up top, those little gray things, that little gray panel there, those are all flip-up inputs so that you can easily get to all your connection points. One of the nice things it does, it is USB-C. So, and it comes with a beautiful 90-degree USB-C adapter. So if you do want to mount it into the car and leave it, or the vehicle that you're going to be putting in, you can do that and not have to worry about it like sticking out like, yeah, that. So, yeah, look at that. Look how sexy that is. That is so sexy.
Or you can mount it the other way if you're not using any of the other controls. And then it's very, very slim.
But if you'd like a compact, robust, heavy-duty trifecta of doom, because you can do high level, you can do low level, you can do AR, that's right, it's all in one little tiny box, make sure to head over to arcaudio.com and check out the PSM Pro. And, of course, stay tuned for more quick tip DSP stuff to follow up later this month. Oh, how exciting is that? Woo! All right. So let me get back over to this page here because I know there's all kinds of fun and excitement that has been happening. All right. So make sure you guys get your questions in, and we will be answering them. Um, back to the tidal wave. My geologist buddy says the tidal wave from La Palma Island earthquake, volcano related landslide might wash over the entire Florida peninsula. Yeah, I mean, hey, Marty, what's up, Mr.
Marty.
Dean? There was that one night where the three of us all hung out back before the dark times.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Huh. Mike Rios, what's up? Mike. All right, here we go. Question. When setting your gains on your amp, does the bass knob have to be turned all the way down or all the way up or even connected?
I answered this one today. This may be the same person.
No.
So when I'm setting gains, I leave the bass knob in the middle. That way you can turn it down and you can turn it up. Because that's the thing about the bass knob is you may want a little more bass, you may want a little less bass.
So what overlap are you using?
So setting it.
What's that?
With the DSP, I don't use any overlap. I don't use any overlap. I'm not using anything but ears and meters on the DSP. I'm a little spoiled because the processor has meters, so I can maximize my input and my output just by looking at the meters.
We should probably do a show on that.
Probably should.
It's similar though to like looking at the meters is very similar to looking at like a peak light indicator of some kind. Right. Yours just has more than one peak light indicator, so when it goes red, then you know.
Yeah, I use the meters. We have the clip indicators at the bottom, which are a little how do I want to say it? They're not as accurate on purpose. So when people see red lights, they stop turning it up because they always turn it up till they see a red light. And I would prefer that they didn't see a red light ever, but
So you're not.
So think about the meters. Meters are very accurate.
You're not supposed to let that secret out.
Yeah, well,
I mean, see, what the heck, man? Now these people. Anyways, if you are going to be using an overlap test tone to do it, probably put it, if you want to go halfway up, put it at 5 dB. That way, if you do go up higher, you'll be at your automatic 10 dB. If you're going to be using like a negative 10 or negative 15 dB overlap track, then definitely turn that bass knob all the way up. Because
but you're doing the same thing basically. You're just setting it with the maximum output that way. It's so hard to use some of these tools that we would have used years ago before DSP.
Yeah,
that worked great for that. The DSP just changes things so dramatically. You almost have to do gains at the beginning instead of the end. If you're going to use DSP, you have to set everything flat and make sure your levels are changed, but it's easier to do by ear. The last time I used this O-scope to set anything was many years ago.
Back in 1995, it was a hot day.
Probably it was a hot day. Exactly,
a hot day. It was stale. The wind was not blowing. Anyways, Okay, there we go. Maybe Tundra Guy can use other equipment in another vehicle. I think he's gonna sell it. I think he's going to say, oh, look, it's Pedro. Brian likes, nope. It's Pedro from Texas.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, just making sure. And Mike, of course, reiterating PSM Pro. Thanks, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Dean, you should get Paul, I don't know who, Glad on here at some point. I have no idea who that is. Do you know who that is? I feel bad. I'm good at first.
And I may know him, but I don't know him by name. A lot of people I know by their car or just by recognizing them. I go, oh, yeah, it's my buddy. And then they say their name, and I go, I never realized that was your name.
PSM Pro plus iData in my Chrysler for the win. Yeah, we know Mike. We know why it's in there too, Mike. This guy. Mike, come on. Well, we're sitting in Mike's car and he's complaining about the interface that he was using. Man, this thing, this thing sucks. This is terrible. It's crap. And I'm like, well, you're the ARC audio reps. Why aren't you using a PSM Pro with an AR? Wait, what?
Well, and his car had a few issues at the beginning we had to work through, but that's the cool thing with us is that we work through them. We don't just go, oh, I don't know what to do with that.
No, and there you go. Yeah, of course. I mean, but that's kind of the whole, between. I mean, listen, this is all new tech, right? We are at the beginning of the future. I mean, I know Amp Pro's been out for about 5 years now, but it started, with the Sony F-150. It was an easier bus system. These buses are getting more complicated. There's more things that are happening on the bus. And so that communication between manufacturer, meaning ARC or whoever, and iData, and then the end consumer or the installer, that has to happen. I've had plenty of times where I've called them and they've immediately come out, or by immediately, within 24 hours, come out with software that has fixed my problems. And sometimes it's taken longer because they had to go get the car, which they've done in the past.
For sure.
So
yeah, they go rent one. I mean, and they've signed into computers, and it's not always them. Sometimes it's Susan. Sometimes it's us, and it's that back and forth handshake with the unit, and it's just nice that it's a company that you can work with that will actually do something, and they don't just go, well, that's how it works, and you got to live with it. Everybody, us and them, we're both trying to get the best, the best outcome that we can,
which is important. All right, back to questions. I'm looking to swap out for the Blackbird. I would like to bridge door mids. I have the Forerunner rear different EQ.
Yeah, you can do. You can bridge the Blackbird. You'll still need channels out, for which you have on the Blackbird. You'll have 4 extra channels out for your sub. But you can do the rear doors on 2 of the channels and EQ them completely different. There's EQs by channel, and you can link them all together after you're done EQing individuals. So you can do the whole system together, or you can just, mute them and then just turn those on when you want them, as far as preset goes.
But to answer, yes, you can bridge the amplifier. So if you want to if you want to take it from an 8-channel to a 6-channel, you can do that. If you want to take it from an 8-channel to a 4-channel, you can do that. But just know you have 4 extra outputs. So 9 and 10 and 11 and 12.
Yep.
Hi, guys. Please explain the benefit of a 3-way versus 2-way. I will be installing Alpine X-Type 6x9 component set. Ooh, we had this one the other day, and I used you as an example on this one because of the truck and how switching to a 2-way was just like, oh, God, I can't believe I'm settling. And then you're like, oh, God, I can't believe how awesome I am. And look what I did with my 2-way. By the way,
it would have been so much easier with a 3-way, though. So much easier.
Explain why.
But I did work my magic, so I mean, there's that.
Yeah. Okay, Wizard Boy. All right, take the question, will you?
So a 3-way system versus a 2-way system. The biggest advantage is that you can move the speakers that are doing most of your imaging cues, acoustical cues. You can have a smaller speaker that you can fit into a location that's higher in the car. So you can bring up your staging a lot easier than a 2-way with mids in the doors and then just the tweeters or a middler up there. That's why most of the companies that do a 2-way for like a truck, say to put a 2.5 or 3.5 inch twiddler up there. A twiddler is a speaker that plays the high frequencies as well as some of the mid-range. It's a little bit harder to move that around than you can for a tweeter, which is what I had to do with the truck. But a 3-way, a lot of Toyotas come with the 3-way, Mercedes, BMW come with the 3-way, and they put a little 3-inch up at the top of the door. And then the 3-way is able to play the frequencies better than one speaker that's trying to play a much larger bandwidth. So a 6.5, as good as it is, can't play the high frequencies as well as a 4-inch, let's say. And a 4-inch can't play lower frequencies because it's a 6-inch. So if you can split that up, and I wouldn't get much more than a 3-way. I've seen guys who try to put a 3 and a 4 and a 6 and an 8. I've seen that before because they say, well, if 3 is better, then 5's got to be even more better. Mo better.
Okay, Denzel.
Yep.
All right. Good job, Brian. Good job.
Yeah,
for an SQL 2020 BMW, would you recommend the XDI 6-channel or the ARC 1006? I don't know what an XDI is.
It's X2. It's the previous version of the X2. So XDI is going to be an older version. So let's say X2, unless you're going to buy a used XDI or you already have one. The biggest difference between the two amplifiers is that the ARC series is made for DSP to go into versus an X2 or XDI that had to use a standalone DSP if you're going to put a DSP in the system. So having a amplifier that the DSP can be put into is much more cost effective. So it almost cuts down on the DSP side by half. And you have one connection for power and ground and RCAs instead of having multiple RCAs that have to go out to the DSP. That's the biggest advantage there. Now, some people like to have different configurations. They want to have 6x2 6 channels in there, and that would be hard to do with built-in DSPs. But that's the biggest difference between the two. So I think I would probably recommend the 1006 personally for that kind of system. If you're going to put a DSP, which if you're going to do SQL, you need to be able to have a little bit of flexibility and have a DSP in the system.
All right, this next segment is brought to you by the fine folks at Focal. That's right, if you're looking for a 3-way set, a 2-way set, a coaxial, whatever you need, the new K2 Power M is out with the frac tweeter. If you'd like to find out more about them, you can find them at focal-america.com. That's right, focal-america.com. Moving on.
Focal.
Hey, man. All right, so Kicker KS 6x8 components versus KS. All right, so coaxials versus components running coaxial mode. They will be run on a key amp. Okay, so I think what the gist of this question is, if you have to run a bi-amped coaxial so that you can put 4 channels of power to it, or just a regular coaxial with 2 channels of power to it. I think maybe. Do you get that from this? I kind of.
I think I would always separate the tweeter from the mid-range as long as you have a proper crossover. I'm not sure whether the key has a bandpass crossover or not.
Yeah, so
if it does, then I would always run that. Yeah, run it that way. And you can split the tweeter and put the tweeter up higher, so you can, depending on where the location is, there's lots of people that are putting 6x9s up high. So
yeah, I mean the nice thing about the component set of that is it does come with the eyeball tweeter mount, which allows you to, like, if you don't have any place to put it, you can eyeball it off of the panel, which is
surface mount it.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. So maybe check that out. Okay. Fang says 2010 MKX non-THX. I think factory amps going bad. Right front door, steady electric whine. Does change with RPM, floor noise, volume balance, fader. Doesn't affect it. Only when running. I'm going to go with probably. So
could be that, or it could be water damage in the back. I mean, not necessarily damage, but you could have some corrosion on the ground in the back. I've seen that. So, but it's almost always water damage. Either the amplifier or the ground has gotten corroded.
So you go. Check to see if you can find the factory ground point. See if it's corroded. If not, more than likely it is the factory amplifier. If you don't want to go crazy on it, you could probably find a replacement amplifier on eBay. There are places that will rebuild these and give you access, reasonable amounts of money. Otherwise, tear it all out and put an MFT1 kit in it, or an FORD1 from my data.
Tearing the whole thing out too.
What's that?
You got to tear the whole thing out with
Oh, of
that.
course you
too.
do. We've all done them.
Yeah.
It was 2010, man.
The whole thing.
We've done them. Didn't say it was fun. When installing an amp under the seat, do you put the ABS between the floor pan and the seat frame or on top of the seat frame? So I typically when I do this, it's like the ABS and it goes underneath the seat rails. So the seat sits on top of it. The bolts go through the metal seat rails. So it sandwiches the ABS between the floor and the seat rail. It just pushes it down into place. That's typically how we do it. What say you, Brian?
Well, let me start with, it depends on the seat.
Well, okay. Yes, it typically depends on the seat.
There are some seats that the clearance is so low that you don't have the opportunity to put it underneath the seat mounts. Seat mounts are going to be the strongest as long as you can get it bolted down and it doesn't change the angle of the seat too much. That's going to be dependent on how thick the ABS is.
What's so good trick for that is to heat up the ABS before you put it in for the first time. That way you can mold it into
push it down.
Push it down into the floor and get the angles just right. So and you just sit there and hold it while it cools, which is so much fun. It's like watching paint dry.
No, I just had to do that yesterday.
Watch paint dry?
I had to watch paint dry. Yeah. But if it goes underneath the seat, then there's where it comes into a little, if it has to go all the way underneath the seat, because there's a lot of stuff underneath these new cars. So you got to be careful before you put an insert underneath the seat or anything else. So a lot of times I will do ABS under the carpet and then put the insert into the ABS. And then I'll go through the carpet from the amplifier side into the ABS, which makes a nice clean, mount for it, which won't move at all, even with the carpet or with the, with the carpet kit. You'd really have to try to mess it up.
Oh, they will. Right? Eliminate rear field, go active front stage, DSP tuned passive in front, coaxials in rear, 5-channel amp. Would I lose loudness? Eliminating rear fill.
So basically, get rid of the rear fill. Let me just say this one. Get rid of the rear fill.
So front stage. This is basically front stage upgrade, no rear fill.
Okay, so I would get rid of the rear fill off the amplifier. Go active in the front, which is going to give you more volume than going through the passives, because most of the passives are gonna get power saturated from any amplifier power. But what I would do, so you don't, if you had the need for loudness at some point, is I would hook up to the factory radio or aftermarket radio, depending on which way you're going with it, the rear speakers, and I would hook those up to the rear of the factory radio or aftermarket radio. That way you can fade those forward when you don't want that loudness, from those rear speakers.
Yeah, we actually just did this Saturday. We had it's 2 Tundras back-to-back 911s. What are the odds of that? Apparently really good. So these guys, the sad thing is this guy had this stereo put in 6 years ago. And
it's a 911 now?
He's just been living with it, dude. And it's like, no, this one aligns. That one just sounded terrible. So they put a tweeter in the top of the dash. So it was non-JBL. So they took out the middler. They put a tweeter in the top of the dash, and they put 6x9s in the bottom of the door that had dual tweeters in them, the matching tweeters. So it was dual 1-inch silk soft them. So there's 6 tweeters up front. They put something in the rear door. I have no idea what. There was a Rockford amp for the sub. There was a Sony 4-channel, one of the GS Sonys for the mids and highs. Yep. Powered off of the factory radio. It was a nightmare. So what he really wanted was to get it to sound better, but also to do a radio upgrade because he wanted CarPlay, Android Auto, and all that fun stuff. So it was like perfect. So we pulled everything out. We put a set of 6x9s in the door that had no tweeters. We put a set of 3.5s in the top of the dash. Then we came active out of the Sony amplifier. So 1 and 2 power the dash, 3 and 4 power the mid bass and the bottom of the door. The radio powered the rears. The radio was a Kenwood. It has volume control for the rears as well as delay and a crossover. He had never actually even heard the rear speakers before because the fader never really worked. I mean, it was just a tragedy. He got in the car and he was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy! Like there's sound on the top of my dash." So, anyways, yes would be the answer. All right, hang on. Let's see. Let's go down here a little bit. And Brian, does the large voice coil diameter, 5 inches, improve punchy mid bass? Ooh.
No.
Okay. That's all you got for me?
So I don't think that the voice coil diameter has anything to do with the punchy mid bass. I think the 5-inch large voice coil cools better. It's can dissipate more heat, so it has a ability sometimes to handle more power, but it's also a little bit less efficient sometimes on certain things, depending on the speaker. Just as a general rule, larger voice coils are less efficient. If they're built right, it doesn't make a difference at all. They're going to work the same, whether they're small voice coil or a large voice coil, as long as you're using them how they're made. The punchiness of the mid bass. Hello.
Hi, Matt.
The punchiness of the mid bass is all on tuning. I don't really believe, unless you're doing a pro audio something or other, where you're accentuating the punchy mid bass just naturally. You got no EQ and it's got punchy mid bass. But nowadays with DSP, a 6.5, I don't use much in any of the cars that are bigger than a 6.5, and I have plenty of punchy mid bass. So
you have no punchy mid bass.
Yeah.
Brian, does SQ loud exist, or do people consider anything that isn't clipping and distortion SQ?
Yeah, that's probably not a question for me.
Come on, man.
So the concept of SQL is more like, in my understanding, SQL is started out from the cars that you're standing behind them, and you're getting really nice sound out of an array of speakers, and somehow that's transferred into the car now. I'm a purist as far as SQ goes, so as soon as you start adding more voice coils inside of the car, I don't believe that you are going to get true SQ. Doesn't mean it won't sound good. I've heard plenty of cars that were loud that sounded really nice, but they weren't sound quality. They were just loud, cars that sounded nice. So I kind of, the whole SQ part of it kind of goes out the window.
Do any of the ARC DSP build in load resistors? And if not, whose resistors or LOCs do you recommend to pair with? So
none of our amplifiers or processors have load resistors. We recommend either putting in audio control, which makes a nice set of load resistors that are pre-made and easy to use. Or in my shop, I just keep a whole bunch of load resistors in my bulk load resistors in my toolbox. So I load resistor everything that's used in OEM integration. So anything that's got a factory radio, or a factory amplifier, I'll load them all down, because putting a load resistor on it doesn't hurt. So as long as you're not doing anything crazy with load resistors, you're fine. There are some cars that need crazy load resistance, and you're just going to have to build that more than likely from scratch anyway.
10 ohm is purple. Yeah.
10 ohm is purple now?
10 ohm is purple. They
Nice.
asked what color they should make it. And I
Oh
said,
yeah. Purple's a good color for it.
yeah, Jeff Smith. Um,
Yep.
Hey, and this next section is brought to you by the people that make those cool load resistors. You can find the LG greens, blues, and grays, and soon purples at
Purple.
audiocontrol.com. That's right. Now, for equipment that does have load resistance built into it, they're high level to low level, the LC1i, the LC2i Pro, the LC7 Pro, and the LC5 Pro all have load resistors built into them. So if you are going to be integrating with something and you need a high level to low level adapter and you don't want to use external load resistance, unless you're doing a Bronco, check them out. Does the PS850 have the same update DSP GUI as the Blackbird has?
It does now. Yes.
Boom!
Everything on the Pro, the PS8 Pro, the PS850 all work on the new Blackbird software. So the DNA software, not Blackbird software, DNA software.
DNA software. So let me get this straight. So you guys took a PS850 that you guys have had for years, and to forget it, we're going to put the DNA software on it. So they basically it's like getting a brand new DSP. Fun.
Oh yeah. All the cool stuff that you get, other than you got 8 channels versus the 12 channels with the Blackbird. But it reconfigures depending on what you hook it up to.
Naturally.
So the configuration's different for PSM Pro, but it uses the same software.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons why it took so long to get it out, and we spent a lot of time doing that.
Yes, you did. Brian, I want to know more about how you have your DAP connected to the Blackbird DSP. How did you settle on the FIO? What led you to choose it?
There's going to be a podcast that we went in great.
So if somebody go their butt and finish it, yeah.
Great depth on this. So I'm gonna tell you, but if there's some more information that will.
Don't forget.
So the FIO is got 3.5 mini jack out that can also be used as coaxial digital. So I come out of the FIO with the coaxial digital, and I have a plug that plugs right into the Blackbird. So it's a very short cable that comes out of the center console, because that's where my Blackbird is, and plugs right in the FIO. The reason why I picked a DAP to start with was because there's a lot of organizations for sound quality competitions. There's 4, 5, 6 now in the United States. So they all have different music, and sometimes it changes on the fly. And then the money rounds are just random music, and you have to be able to play all of them. And it's hard to find a radio now that plays all the formats, where the DAPs, a good DAP, will play all the formats. So I use a FIO M11 ESS Plus, and that is it's gone down in price. It's much less expensive. There are a plethora of DAPs out there, and depending on how you use them, may be worth the $5,000 that they charge for them, or may not be worth the $249 that they charge for them, depending on what you're going to use them for. So looking into what features are there, the FIO had Apple Music, and it also had Tidal native on the unit, so you could play through those. That's why I picked that one.
There you go. See, I like the fact that it does Apple Music. Makes me want to buy one.
That was the very first one that I know of that had Apple Music. So.
Did you have to get military's permission to use the name Blackbird? Because they didn't steal the name from the actual Blackbird.
No, but we did have to have a lot of conversations about the Alpine Blackbird.
Yeah.
Because we get that all the time. I would not have used that name. They're going to be able to start selling those again in some country, because we've done such a good job of rehabilitating the name. So.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone always says that. Hey, I had an experience with an Alpine. It's like, yeah, wrong thing. Brian, is ARC hiring any kind of representative in the Tennessee area? Need a job and would love to get into the audio world. I've been in it for 30 years, just never really worked for it. Need a rep in Tennessee?
I'm not sure that I have anything going on in Tennessee, but that doesn't mean that something won't come up. It's always good to keep in touch and be at the places where we're at. So,
All right. What is Brian's preferred subwoofer power for front stage power ratio? So, what is Brian's preferred subwoofer power to front?
I like all the powers.
Yeah, you want all the powers.
I want all the powers. 2-to-1 usually. When I say that, so if my front stage has 1,000 watts, 1,000 watts is probably fine. Yeah, is probably fine. So 1,000 watts for the whole front stage versus 1,000 watt per sub is pretty good. But again, depending on what I'm doing with the system in the truck, I would say I could go 1-to-1 and and then that would be plenty fine.
Okay. Okay, back to the Dawn. So testing a dongle DAC on my Android phone, and so far they do I'm guessing not disappoint. The file K17 is next on my list.
So on phones, Android, what is it? What are we on now? 17, 13, 15, whatever it is. The latest Android is bit perfect. So that's good. That's a positive there. It still doesn't tell you what the jitter rate is or anything else. Everybody gets tied up on these little words like bit perfect, but they don't tell you what the jitter is, and the jitter on a digital signal is what makes the big difference.
What the heck is jitter?
Huh?
What is jitter?
Jitter is what really makes the sound on a digital source bad. It's the clocks. They have to synchronize everything, and so if the clocks are off by a little bit, then they call that jitter.
Yeah. When we had Steve Brown and we did the Tesla with the F1 system in it, one of the extended portions of time that he spent was explaining that the clock and the jitter. So if anybody's interested in really getting a long explanation of that, and you haven't watched the F1 Tesla video, it's somewhere in the middle. He starts talking about the clock and how unique the clock is for that F1 processor. And we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I would like to replace the factory Bose amp in a 99 to 06 Silverado with a key 200.4 to do bi-amp the front stage. Can I use the Bose amps output power ground running RCAs for input? I'm just going to go with no.
So you really, the 99 to 2006 was before any factory radio was pretty much any good. That's your bigger problem.
Yes.
Can you do it? Yeah, you can. There's a lot of things you could do with the factory radio. The problem is that the radio is so bad.
Yeah.
That even replacing it with a $300 Sony or Kenwood or your radio of choice is going to be a better upgrade. And I know some people like to keep the factory radio stock. They've gotten used to that now with the new cars, so they don't want to do that with older cars. Theft might be a reason. But if that's the case and you want to keep the factory radio, I put a Bluetooth in, and I would just not use the factory radio at all. So
yes. Okay. And the question is, what podcast will Brian be going in depth on the DAP?
We'll hold off on that.
Yeah, at some point you'll find out, because it's we're still dealing with that. Is there any plans in the works for an ARC A15 subwoofer? So
No.
bringing back the 15.
No, that he wants a flat 15.
Okay.
So Earthquake actually made a really nice flat 15 that sounded good a long time ago. There are a couple of manufacturers now. Audio Mobile, I think, makes a reasonably shallow 15. The problem with most of them is that they take the same box size that a regular 15 takes. And if you have that much space, you can usually put a traditional 15 in. Now, not always, but a flat speaker generally is being used in a truck. That's what we always think of when we think of a flat 10 or 12 is truck use. And the call in reality for a 15 sticking out from the end of the seat is very little. There's some. I mean, people would, they'll do lots of stuff to get a bigger woofer in there, but the sales volume would be so low that it wouldn't justify the cost of tooling and everything else. So I think there's enough products on the market now that would take care of that we would never do that.
Okay, question. Brian Mitchell recommended Midler for under $300 a pair. Ooh, Midler.
I'm not a Midler fan, but if I was going to use a Midler and I just had to answer the question, I would probably recommend Karma. They make a nice Midler.
All right, there you go. Really, Karma?
Karma, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably would be my go-to. Again, the chances that I would put one in are less. There's a lot of compromises on the Midler that I don't have to do, so I don't do it.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. The Audio Mobile takes 0.5 cubic feet. So there you go. I know Adam's played with them before.
No, their woofers are really nice for what they are. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, what's your thoughts on upfront bass? Is it easy or hard to implement? What size do you feel is the best? So tell me, Brian, when riding around in the passenger side of the car and my knees are in my chest and, my little 5-toe shoes are ducking. How do we feel about
I like upfront bass. I think he's talking about just getting the illusion of upfront bass as well. I'm extreme with having the woofer in the front, but the truck has no woofers in the front. It's just a 6.5 and tweeter in the front with 212s behind me. So a bigger woofer is always better in the back of the car. So 15 is better than 12, and a 12 is better than a 10 most of the time.
Why is that?
It's just how it loads. I mean, the low end you can cross it over, higher, and you don't have any issues on integrating the low end, the real low end. Now, the downside to that is if you have 15, sometimes it energizes panels, and that's a different problem than getting the tuning right.
You say energizing panels. Is that a nice way of saying rattle?
Rattles, yes.
Okay.
Rattles.
Okay. Energizing panels. All right, I'm gonna have to write that one down. Sorry, your panels are getting energized. No, they're just rattling. That's energizing.
Yeah. For me, upfront bass is not hard to get. I understand the interaction with mid bass and how to get upfront bass. It's not really that hard. So
okay.
Just like imaging, the hard part is not the initial feeling of upfront bass. It's when you want upfront bass on every single frequency that's playing in the car, no matter what else is playing. Those little nuances are what sets everything apart from really good to really, really good.
You like really, really good.
Yeah. I like really good.
So you're going to spend way too much time. Okay. And then he says, thanks, Karma. Need a middle to make a 3-way set, not using it as a full high range driver. Okay.
Then you really don't need a middler. You need just a mid range.
Okay.
And I'd probably still be looking at that price range. It would be the Karma. Karma makes a good mid range for that. I mean, they in that price range, they're pretty solid. That's probably a really good go to speaker to go to.
There you go.
Yeah, the Aspect 3. Yeah,
Very nice. Hang on. Crossover point for front sub.
depends on the car and the tuning and everything else and how it's loading on the car.
So
I can't give an answer for that one because it's super dependent on the car, especially with an upfront sub.
So let's talk about your upfront sub for a minute, just to kind of fill in the crack here. And that's the crack in your right there.
Yeah.
So what do you have up front in the Cadillac?
I have an A10.
And how much of a pain in the butt was it to get it up there?
To get it up there was not difficult. The difficult part was the cosmetic integration and what I did to make it work properly up there. A lot of people will put an upfront sub in and they'll just have it shooting towards the passenger. And really, to make an upfront sub work properly, the sub should load off the floor. And in the best case scenario, it should load off the floor and should tunnel up through the back of the dash. And the first time you actually hear it, unless you energize the panels, is when it comes out of the dash up around the windshield. And then you get a certain amount of a certain amount of feeling of depth because of where the sound is emanating from.
There you go. And this kind of piggybacks on that, with some vehicles having a gigantic dash. Has anyone ever built an dash top enclosure, especially for vehicles with no door speakers and small ones in the lower dash?
Well, your small speakers shouldn't be as high as possible. You shouldn't have those low in the dash at all. But yeah, there's a lot of guys who have tried using no mid bass and just having a center bass mid bass speaker in the middle with a box. So I know Mick Sheck has done it and had reasonable success with it. A few other current guys that I probably don't want to mention their name just because I don't want to, it's a secret for them.
Yeah.
But there are guys that are trying it to varying success. Me personally, I think mid bass should be stereo, left and right still, even though the frequencies for mid bass usually are non-directional, and you should be able to get away with the single one.
I knew it would.
I know that guy.
I knew it would. That's so funny. 3-inch wide band. All right, 3-inch, 3 wideband sealed or infinite baffle.
It really depends on the manufacturer. There are some manufacturers like the ARC RS3 is made for a very small sealed enclosure. It will work infinite baffle, but the power handling goes down. Whereas some 3-inch speakers are made for an infinite baffle. So you really have to look at the manufacturer's spec to determine that.
All right, hold on. This was one. Brian, a person at your level, you utilize a center channel?
I don't use a center channel, but I don't really look at 2-seat in that realm for a car. There are some new products that are coming out, like the Ribbon, that can give you a good 2-seat experience that you kind of expect from 2-seat, but you do have to use a center channel. That's the same as the outside speakers. So I can't say that if I had somebody that came into my shop and they had to have that specific thing, that I wouldn't build one with a center channel. But just normally, I don't do center channels in any of my cars that I build.
What is the device you were talking about?
Ribbon.
I haven't heard of that. What the hell, man?
Yeah, just came out. It's Todd Loliak. He's a really good guy. He's in Texas, Oklahoma area.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got its pluses and minuses, and guys are trying to get a feel for it.
3 or 4 channel input kind of thing. Like it doesn't have
a 2-channel input, 3-channel output. Right. All RCAs. You can't use digital in, so you got to use RCAs.
Okay. Um, Center channels are an excuse not to tune correctly. I don't know about that.
In a purist form, I agree 100%. But in a two seat situation, the only way you can get a two seat tune, in my opinion, even with equalizing path lengths to the best of your ability and all of the things that we used to do back in the day, center channel still is the right way to do it if you're trying to get a two seat kind of tune. So
2-seat kind of tune.
it's still kind of.
What is your opinion on 5-channel amps?
I have a couple of them that I sell, so I love them. I think everyone should buy 50 or 100 of them.
50. I like the 5-channel because it's for most cars you're doing a two-way set up front. There's a tweeter and a mid range, and you have a sub. Like we talked about earlier. I think the 5-channel amp is perfect for the front stage upgrade. I think that's what the 5-channel amp is turning into. I would love a 7-channel at some point. That would be cool, right? So that you could do a three-way set and or do rear, but then you have the oddness of the subwoofer channel. But
yeah, so a lot of people that ask the question about the multi-channel amplifiers are looking at it from an old amplifier technology standpoint, where if you had your highs amp and your bass amp in the same amplifier, when the bass hit, you would get a lot of lag. It would really pull down the power supply, and then it wouldn't be so good. The sound would distort. As far as new amplifiers, they don't have that problem. I personally like 6 channels versus a 5-channel.
why is that?
Right. Versatility. So if you decide you want to change at some point, you have a lot more versatility with a 6-channel versus a 5-channel. Now here's the difference.
Yeah.
Is if you're using or your product SKU that you're normally using, it wants a 2 ohm load, then a 5-channel is the way to go, because that's really the difference between a 5-channel and a 6-channel, is that a 6-channel, most 6 channels are going to be optimized for a 4 ohm mono load, where 5-channel is going to be optimized for a 2 ohm mono load.
Unless you're using the Focal 6-channel, I believe it's called the 690, in which case channels 5 and 6 can be loaded down to 2 ohms. Oh yeah! And it's also staggered power. It gives you the best of a 6-channel amplifier, in that channels 1 through 4 are a normal amount of power, and channels 5 and 6 are more power, and you can bridge it into 2 ohm if you want to. So you can do 4 or 2 ohm. Oh, how cool is that? That is, my friend, the best of both worlds in a 6/5 configuration. I'm not saying the Focal has it, but Focal has it. I've used it, and it's a solid amplifier. So, if we're going to have the perfect amplifier, Focal makes it. We're done. Drop the mic. Hey, guys, that's the show. Yep.
I'm going to say the 8-channel is the perfect amplifier then, because you can bridge.
Fine. All right,
put one each voice coil.
Yeah.
And you have real staggered power.
Easy, Ken. Okay. All right, listen, guys, that's the show. Brian, thank you so much for filling in for Fernando today.
Anytime.
I hope you guys had a wonderful time grilling Brian with some solid questions. We'll be back as always, and also make sure to tune in to YouTube this week, the next couple days, as we finish this Toyota Tundra. We're doing this weird 911 live talk through, and as I said, before I go home tonight, I'm going to wrap it up for you and show what we got done today, and get you set up for tomorrow, when hopefully Fernando will be back to help me finish this bad boy. Brian, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with the folks here. That's all I got. You guys have a spectacular day, and we'll see you later next time. Bye.